Good morning, everyone. I am Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company here in New Prague, Minnesota. I'm also the host of Ask a Painter Live, a weekly Facebook segment where you send me your questions. I answer them live using my over 2 decades of painting, restoration, and finishing experience. So it's the Friday before Labor Day here. I get the pleasure of a beautiful morning at the lake here, close to my home. And we are doing a log siding restoration project. So we're on the last day here. We're applying the last coat of our log oil. I'll set this camera down and I'll sort of describe what we've been doing here. Okay, so this house built probably 10 to 15 years ago, give or take. It had a Sickens product applied on originally. It was applied all the specs, everything looked good, except that it was never maintained by the last homeowner. So the homeowners who have it now decided to restore the outside of this home. And I can do that in a bunch of ways. And this process is not dissimilar from that of decks, where you're dealing with old finish, you're dealing with gray decaying wood, you're dealing with water issues, a whole bunch of other stuff. So the worst end of this house was the south end, which is stereotypically the worst end of a house. It gets full sun, and as most of you guys know, UV is the killer of coatings. 10, 20 years ago, I would have thought water was, and water certainly is, but the worst of the two is sun. It's ever present, it's always there, and you can see on the south side of most houses, the coatings deteriorate much quicker. The siding, the pine siding, the log siding, was almost turning black. The cedar shakes up above in the peak were not that bad. They fared a little bit better, but they were starting to gray and buckle and things like that. So with the rest of the house, I did a simple color correction. I did a wash. I treated it with an oxalic acid product to brighten the wood, then pressure washed it off. The pressure washing will rough up the wood a tiny bit, so we go back with random orbital sanders and we sand that. On the south side, we did a special process where we actually stripped off all the old finish to get it to wood. And there's many products available. Some have different formulations. Some are a little more acidic, some are a little more alkaline. The products I use tend to be a little more alkaline. I think it does not harm the bushes and the surrounding painted items all that bad. But there's a lot of deck stripping products, and I usually use those first because they're less caustic than a standard methyl ethyl chloride stripper. So what you want to do is, on a cool day, on a shady day, something, south side being in the sun all day, you want to apply this stripper, let it wait for 15 minutes, and in this case, Sickens was used originally, and Sickens is a beautiful product. They use the C-Tall system, which is a 3-coat system, so there was a lot of finish to take off. We ended up waiting for about an hour or two. It was a nice cool day. We just kept it wet with stripper, power wash it all off, let it dry for a day or two, and then come back and sand it. And I'll walk you guys around that side if I remember at the end of this, and I'll show you kind of the progress we've been making. So, but yeah, that was the worst side. I wanted to get down because there were some areas on the house, on that south side too, where the finish was intact. There were some areas that were black, and if you don't get rid of all the finish and start over, you're going to have some areas that are quite blonde and then a couple areas that are quite deep. So that's basically how we deal with this log siding. I am big fans of Cabot, and I'm a big fan of Sickens. I usually offer both to my customers. The biggest decision maker usually is price. Cabot, is probably a third of the price of the Sickens product, and depending on the Sickens product you use, you may have to do a 3-coat system, whereas most Cabot products are a 2 or even a 1-coat system. So it really depends. It's not what product is better, it's what does the homeowner want to spend and what do they want it to look like. There's certain products that I can't get in Sickens that I can only do in Cabot, and then if somebody wants their house to look like that particular finish, then that's the only choice for it. So in this one, we're actually using the premium log and siding oil, which is a very traditional Sickens product that I used even 25 years ago when I first started with my old man. So it's a very good product. It's a simple 2-coat system. That's why I like it. Very, very spendy. I mean, we're probably approaching $100 a gallon, but I don't know of any other readily available, cost-effective product that most people can get nationwide for log and siding and things like that. You can't use it on flat surfaces on decks, but for siding like this, it's just phenomenal stuff. So I'm not beholden to any brand, but like I said, Every brand has their good products, every brand has their bad products. You just got to figure out what the homeowner wants it to look like, what do they want to spend, and figure it out from there. So if you guys have any specific questions about any of the technical data sheet recommendations on the Sikkens or the Cabot or whatever, let me know. But otherwise, you know, you sort of get, this is one coat of log oil there after a nice wash, and today we'll be putting on the second. So it really brings out the wood. You know, the wood gets old, it gets gray, it gets dingy, full of cobwebs over at lakes too. This really brings it back. It gives it that satiny, almost woodwork finish from the interior of a house. So, okay, I have 2 questions here, and again, I was overwhelmed with the amount of questions that people sent me last week when I mentioned that I would give a mug away to anybody whose question I used. I'm going to continue that. I had such a great response. If I use your question, I will send you one of my handmade mugs. You can find pictures of them on my Facebook page. I have 2 more people here. Chad Wieskus, he wrote in and asked, do you have an app that you use to compare the color hue of an existing siding that allows you to match colors? Hold it up to the siding and it says, name the paint combo, so you can match a barn to a house or vice versa. Again, I will try to give you readily available things that you can actually find. Sherwin-Williams and Benjamin Moore are big brokers of this sort of thing. Sherwin-Williams has an app called Color Snap, and when it's on your mobile phone, you can actually hold it up to a plant, a bug, a leaf, siding, a rock, and it'll show you the closest Sherwin-Williams color to that. On the laptop or on the desktop version of that, you can upload a picture of your home, a digital image. You can sort of outline areas that you want to change the colors in, and then you can use Sherwin-Williams colors to do that. Benjamin Moore has a similar thing too. Both programs are fairly simple to use. Minor tweaks between the 2 of them. Benjamin Moore, same thing. You upload your photo. You can sort of, you know, manipulate the colors, this and that. As a professional, I use this sort of as the nuclear option when a homeowner cannot pick a color. Normally my color process is you tell me what you want. If they're unsure, I come back for my free color consultations. I bring out all my fan decks and we go through and I kind of tell them, here's what I've done before, here's the response people have given me, here's something lighter, darker, different hues, red, yellow, whatever. And then I just say, you know, if you're fairly certain on a few colors, go get some samples, try them out. Most people, 99% through the sample process, get the color perfect. They have skin in the game, they've thought about it, they've spent a little money on samples, they've put them up, they've looked at them midday, they've looked at them evening, in all different kinds of light, and normally that is a foolproof 90% and 99% process there. The nuclear option comes in with that 1% where somebody, I can tell from talking to them that they're still unclear. I will take a picture of their house, I will upload it there, and I will give them a couple formats, a couple different color options. Now, this is not perfect. It's not an exact science because these these things overlay. The colors through these programs, they overlay onto the house. So you're dealing with shadows, you're dealing with the existing paint color. It's going to tweak it a little. It's a little bit opaque, so it's not a perfect system. But when somebody doesn't know whether to choose purple, green, yellow, blue, red, whatever, this will at least narrow it down to a color family, and then they can start the sample process again. Some people are just visual like that. They just need to see a representation of it. These things are getting so easy to use that a lot of my homeowners will just do it themselves now. I can direct them in that manner. But you know, you can always tell the 1 out of 100 people just need that extra little coaxing, and I'm fine to do it. It's not a big deal, and it usually helps my process go better too. So yeah, there is, I've actually experimented with this a couple years ago with that Sherwin-Williams app where I was just taking pictures of random stuff, putting together color schemes, and then you can post them on social media and share them and things like that. It's kind of an interesting thing. I have not found it to be useful in most of my professional stuff, because when somebody comes to me and they say, you know, take for instance, I don't know if we can see it here, but there's that blue service door right there that's a little bit faded by the sun. It's sort of a you know, country blue color like that. I could hold up the Color Snap app, take a picture of it, and it would show me the closest Sherwin-Williams color, but it's just the closest color. When people hire professional, they want it exact. So I would have to either find a chip of something and color match it. If there's no flaking paint, if there's no old record of the paint, then I would probably try that Color Snap app, and it would at least give me a place to start. and then I would find that color in my fan deck so I can actually see a representation that's not digital, and I would hold it up to the door. And you know, sadly, based on experience, I kind of know whether to go up, to go down, to go right, to go left. It's actually a very difficult process to try to match a color from a fan deck to an existing color. You would be, you know, in theory, it would be simple. You just hold the two colors up and whatever matches, matches. But there's a whole bunch of little tricks in there, and the paint is different when you formulate it from that sample into a real paint and then you put it on the house. So usually within about 2 tries, with no record of the paint and no chip to match, I can usually get it pretty close that way. So just when you're using stuff like this, these are not foolproof. They get you close. They're an approximation. Still, you have to put a little bit of time, a little bit of labor in it to match the color if you want. So Chad, thank you for that. I'll be sending you a mug. I do appreciate your input on all that. Find my next question here. Danny Airy wrote in. He's a painting professional. With the rise of water-based technology, do you feel there are any good waterborne deck stains? Duckback is rising in popularity. As most, if anybody's listened to this more than once, I'm sure you understand that I'm a traditionalist, not because I'm a stick in the mud, is because there are certain things that are tried and true. This log home is getting done with oil. It's because of the size of the house, because of the nature of the project. I would have a very hard time, and I would actually have some moral uncertitude using a water-based finish, especially over a house that's already been coated with oil. 2 dissimilar bases don't really jive all that well together. Having said that, you guys also know that I've started using the Benjamin Moore Advanced enamel for most of my interior enameling, cabinet, and furniture work too. Now, that is a new technologically advanced sort of eco-friendly option for the old traditional enamel. It's a oil molecule immersed in water. The water is the vehicle that gets it onto the paint, and then once the water evaporates, you're left with an oil paint, or as close as you can approximate an oil paint. I've experimented quite a bit this year with Cabot's hybrid offering for deck stains, mainly because the old oil versions are just unavailable now. And same thing, oil molecule immersed in water, water evaporates, you're left with an oil finish. It's not the same as an oil finish, but it's very close. I've been very pleased with the performance of those things, so I'm slowly coming online with those. Now, that is a hybrid. I am still unsure about a lot of the pure water-based formulas. The worst decks that I've ever seen are decks done with a water-based semi-transparent decking stain. And you know, there's usually a little bit of prep done, and most of the decks I've seen, the homeowners have at least pressure washed it or have at least done excuse me, their due diligence to get the deck clean. And then they applied, you know, the water-based decking stain over the top there, usually in a transparent form. I see a lot of Behr and Home Depot cans there too, but I'm sure there's a lot of other offenders. And those decks, they just peel right up. Within 6 months, the flakes of that stain just curl right up off the deck. So there always is human error, especially in decks. There's lots of human error. So I never say it's all the product's fault, but I have not seen a good version of a pure water-based stain, semi-transparent, semi-solid, this and that. I myself use the solid once in a while, the pure water-based latex stain when we're doing siding. I do decks once in a while, but you just have to understand that it's not perfect, and it will not. You still have to follow the maintenance regimen. You know, usually between 1 and 3 years, 1 and 5 years recoat time for that. So. Danny, I am not quite on board with all that stuff yet. I haven't seen enough evidence to sway me in the other way, but I'm 70% there with hybrids. And if these other, you know, again, I have a lot of experience with Cabot and with Sickens, a little bit with Duckback here and there. I'm not quite versed on with their line, but you know, there's Sherwin-Williams had recently picked up a similar product. And it is available nationwide. I will be experimenting with it actually later on this project. The deck was previously done with that, and probably later today or Monday I will be doing the deck in that product, and I can give you a little feedback there. But 70%, I'm almost there. In 5 years, I probably won't have a choice. That's why I'm experimenting with them now. A lot of my good oils are disappearing. It seems like Sickens is still on board with the oil stuff. They they are not offering too many hybrids or water-based versions of their stuff. They actually have, and they have their new versions, which I started seeing in the last year or two. It's on all their cans labeled RE, which is reduced emissions. So it's still a pure solvent-based product, which I like, but they're also doing something to help out the environment, which I think is good. Sikkens, for me, fills a very big niche in what I do, as in this, you know, these high-end log homes where people just, they will not settle for something less than the best log product out there. So I hope that helps. Yes, water-based products are easier for us to use. They don't smell as bad. They're easier to clean out the brushes. But again, the question I always ask, is it better for us or is it better for the homeowner? To me, you would be hard-pressed to look me in the eye and argue that any water-based product for decks or for siding would be better than an oil-based product at this point, except for solid color siding stain. Solid color siding stain, solid oil siding stain has fallen off in the last few years, huge fading problems, and it's disappearing. So it's sort of a non-issue. Everything is going to a hybrid or a water base. So in a couple of years, you probably won't find, besides niche companies, you know, I don't want to call Sikkens a niche company, but Cabot has done away with it for the most part, and Sikkens still offer a solid oil, but you probably won't see a lot of this stuff in 5 to 10 years. So that's why I'm trying to do my due diligence now, getting a good system down so that when I don't have a choice, everything's on board, I have a track record, and trust in all this stuff. So I will scroll through the feed here and see what everybody wants to know about here. Don, he asked what product did I use. I assume that you're talking about the log home beside there. It's the Cetol Log and Siding Oil. Let's see here. Kevin Colmus, he asked, do you keep records of when it's time to recoat? Decks are something we do occasionally. Customers can let their home or deck go long before recoat. I like oil. Like the traditional way. Yeah, I do too. And one of the things that all my customers appreciate is honesty. I don't offer any warranties through my company, only because you're basically warranting everything that's ever been done to the house. In lieu of that, I'm very honest with the homeowner. You know, when we have a house with a lot of peeling paint, I'll tell them, you know, if this is a house built in the 50s, 70s, something like that, you could have 10 coats of poorly applied paint on here. I can get as much of this off as you want, and if you like, I can strip the whole house down. Most people don't opt for that option, though. What they want is something in between. They want me to get rid of everything that will come off reasonably, and they want me to coat it in the highest quality way possible. And I'm very honest with them, saying, you know, this stuff has already come off. There is a good chance in the future that all this other stuff will come off as well. It's just a matter of time, how much sun it gets, how much water it gets, and people are very appreciative of that. And when it comes to decks too, if somebody wants this look, this clear oil look here, and it's a flat surface like a deck, that's a 1-year recoat. Every year you need to get out there, wash it, scrub it, sand it, coat it. Now, with my own deck, I've done that, and after about year 3 or 4, it builds up a beautiful finish, and then I only scrub it with soap and water, and then, you know, maybe every 2 or 3 years you would have to recoat it. I still coat it every year just to be on the vanguard of that. I've never seen one of my customers follow up and have their deck recoated every year, so I use my deck as a bellwether. I want to say, by the TDS, by the technical data sheet, doing everything by the book, how long can I make this deck last? And I follow that, and I experiment with products here and there, but I've got a really good result. It looks like a nice satiny finish, almost like a hardwood floor in a house. So yeah, I'm the same way, Kevin. I still like the traditional stuff. I'm just kind of preparing myself and my business for the eventual decline of the oil market and things like that. So, okay, well, thank you guys very much for watching. In a couple hours here, I will actually be on a nationally syndicated radio broadcast, Today's Homeowner. You guys can look it up on the internet, todayshomeowner.com. They have a Facebook page, Instagram page, and it's a segment where they talk to professionals and they ask for advice, sort of like this. And I will be talking about painting steel garage doors. So check that out, find that on the internet. They will give a list of stations and times where you can hear that, and I'm sure they'll have it archived or podcast on their website too. So I appreciate you guys watching this. There is a follow button on this as well. If you'd like to get automatic updates when I'm live, hit that. And also, last thing I'll mention before I go, I am hiring. I have positions in my full-time year-round apprenticeship program where I take people who have lots of experience or no experience and want to learn my methods of doing things. And over the course of a couple years, I will take you through. Not only will you learn all of the not secrets, all the methods of my trade. We will also coach each other in the leader of men. We will teach you to lead a crew, how to manage people, how to manage homeowners, and how to run a successful, little group of people, like a small squad tactic sort of thing, and take you under my wing, and then we will eventually work together with separate crews. So that's my apprenticeship program. I'm also hiring for my professional finisher, professional painter and restoration side of the company too. So if you guys know anybody, or you yourself would like to further your trade and gain a little freedom in life by being a painter and a restorationist, you can get a hold of me anyway. But I do appreciate you guys watching this, and again, send in your questions. If I use your question, I will continue sending my handmade mugs out to you. I do appreciate the feedback. It means a lot to me and my family that you guys take part in all this. So you guys have a good Labor Day weekend, and I will post some after pictures probably early next week of the log home product. So thanks again, guys.